The shovel weighs 14 pounds. You have moved it 8,000 times today. The man next to you is going to die in 51 minutes, and you will not notice it when it happens, because you will be busy doing your job. There are 12 men in this room. By morning, 10 of them will be dead. It is 11:39 p.m., April 14th, 1912. Your name is Patrick Boyle. You are 19 years old. You have a mother in Belfast who is saving her last shilling for a dress to wear when you come home. The largest moving object ever built by human hands is about to hit something it cannot move, and you are 6 stories below the waterline. You were born in 1892 in a row house in Belfast, 3 streets from the Harland and Wolff shipyard where this ship was built. Your father worked at the yard, and so did both of your older brothers. When you were 11, you stopped going to school and started carrying tools for a riveter named McCabe, who paid you 4 shillings a week and taught you that a working man does not complain about the temperature. You are 5'6". You weigh 132 pounds. You have never seen the ocean from a beach, only from the deck of a ship. You signed on to the Titanic 3 days ago in Southampton because the pay is £6 a month and because you have a plan, a small house outside Belfast, with a kitchen big enough for your mother to cook in without bumping her elbows on the walls. She does not know about the house yet. You wanted to surprise her. You will not get to. Boiler Room 6 is the forwardmost compartment of the ship. The Titanic has 29 boilers, and you stand in front of one of them, 16 feet wide, burning 825 tons of coal a day. The temperature in front of you is 50 degrees Celsius, and so is the temperature in your lungs. To your right is a man named Thomas, 24 years old, with a wife and a daughter in Liverpool. To your left is a trimmer, a boy younger than you who has been moving coal from the bunkers all evening. You will not learn his name. Above all of you walks Patrick Boyle, the lead fireman, who has been doing this for 14 years. At 9 p.m., he passes by, nods at you, and you do not nod back, because nodding requires energy you do not have. At 9:40 p.m., Thomas drops his shovel and slides down against the bulkhead. You think for a second that he has died. He has not. He is just very tired. He looks up at you and says, "You go on, lad. You do not understand what he means, and you will not for another 2 hours." At 10 p.m., a man in a suit walks through Boiler Room 6 carrying a notebook. This is Thomas Andrews. He designed this ship. He nods at the firemen, but he does not nod at you because he does not see you. In 2 hours and 40 minutes, he will be standing alone in the first-class smoking room, watching a clock on the wall, waiting to die. He will succeed. And 6 decks above you, in a room you have never seen and will never see, the wireless operator is at this moment receiving the 6th ice warning of the day. He is busy with passenger telegrams. The warning will not reach the bridge. At 11:35 p.m., the engine room telegraph rings. You don't hear it. You are too far back, too deep into the coal. But Patrick Boyle hears it, and he looks up at the dial, where the signal reads stop. This is unusual. The Titanic does not stop in the middle of the Atlantic. 5 seconds later, the signal changes to full ASTERN, which is more unusual, because a ship moving at 22 knots cannot stop in 5 seconds, and cannot do anything in 5 seconds except continue moving at 22 knots. Somewhere on the bridge, an officer has just turned the wheel and rung the telegraph and made every decision he was trained to make. None of them are going to work. At 11:40 p.m., you feel the ship shudder. It is not a crash, not a bang, not anything you have a word for. It is a long, grinding hum that travels through the hull and into your boots and up your spine and into your teeth, and it lasts 7 seconds. Then the water comes in. Not a flood. A jet the thickness of a man's arm, blasting through the starboard, plating 6 feet to your left, hitting the hot boiler and turning instantly into steam. Patrick Boyle shouts, "All hands, get to the doors!" You do not move. You are looking at the water. You have never seen seawater inside a ship before, and your brain is taking a moment to file the image somewhere it can use later. It will not get the chance to use it the way it expects. The watertight doors begin to close. You hear the alarm bell first, then you see the door at the aft end of Boiler Room 6 begin to descend. Slowly, about 1 foot every 2 seconds. You have 10 seconds to get under it. Patrick Boyle moves. He gets through into Boiler Room 5 at the last possible second. So does Thomas, sliding under on his back. So do 6 other men. You do not move. You are 19 years old, and you have been told for 3 days that the Titanic is unsinkable, and the men who told you were older and better dressed than you, and so you stand and watch the door come down. it touches the deck plate. The sound it makes is small and final. You are now in Boiler Room 6 with 5 other men. The water is at your ankles. It is rising at 7 inches per minute. The compartment is 20 feet tall, and the door is not going to open again. You do the arithmetic. You have 34 minutes. The other 5 men in the compartment do their own arithmetic and arrive at the same answer. 2 of them start praying in Italian. 1 climbs onto the top of a boiler. The boiler is 50 degrees Celsius on the outside, and it burns through his trousers in 6 minutes, and he gives up and slides back into the water. 1 pounds on the watertight door with a wrench, calling Frederick Barrett's name. Frederick Barrett does not come back. The man with the wrench is the first to stop pounding. You sit down on the bottom rung of a ladder against the wall. You are not panicking. You are very tired. You have been awake for 16 hours. You have shoveled 80 tons of coal in your last shift. Your hands are bleeding inside your gloves, and your back is no longer a back. It is a single sheet of pain. You think about your mother. You think about the kitchen in the house she does not know about. You think about the trimmer, whose name you never asked, and who is already dead somewhere above you. You think about Thomas saying, "You go on, lad," and you finally understand that he meant it for himself, that he was apologizing in advance for getting under the door before you. You forgive him. While you are forgiving him, Thomas is climbing the escape ladder in Boiler Room 5 with the rest of the men who got under the door. He reaches the boat deck at 12:38 a.m. He helps a woman into a lifeboat at 1:30 a.m. He helps another into the next one at 1:45 a.m. At 1:55 a.m., an officer with a revolver in his hand looks at him and asks, "Can you row?" Thomas can row. Thomas grew up rowing on the Mersey. Thomas gets into lifeboat 14 with 13 other men and 46 women and children, and the lifeboat is lowered into the Atlantic, and Thomas is rowing in the dark when the ship's lights go out, and he is rowing in the dark when the Titanic breaks in half, and he keeps rowing because the officer told him to. The water is at your waist. The water is at your chest. The water is at your shoulders. The lights flicker. The lights go out. You think, very briefly, I would have liked her to see the kitchen. Then you stop thinking. At 2:17 a.m., the Titanic's lights flicker once and go out. At 2:18 a.m., the ship breaks in half between the third and fourth funnel. The sound is heard for miles. Thomas, in lifeboat 14, hears it from a quarter mile out. The bow section, which contains Boiler Room 6, sinks faster than the stern. By 2:20 a.m., both halves are gone. 12,500 feet of seawater closes over them. What happens to a body in a sealed iron compartment when the ship containing it disintegrates is not a thing the Royal Commission of Inquiry investigated, because there were no witnesses and nothing useful to recover. You were not, in any meaningful sense, conscious for the relevant minutes. Patrick Boyle is inside Boiler Room 6 at 2:19 a.m. Patrick Boyle is not inside Boiler Room 6 at some unrecorded moment after that. The mechanism is not available to your memory. The first thing that comes back is breath. You inhale, hard, involuntarily, and what comes in is half air and half seawater, and your body coughs both of them out at the same time. You are face up in the Atlantic Ocean. The stars are unbelievably clear. Somewhere far away, in a direction you cannot identify, hundreds of voices are screaming, but they are getting quieter. The cold has stopped being cold and started being a kind of distant pressure, which is your body shutting down stage by stage. You do not understand why you are alive. You do not understand why you are not in Boiler Room 6. You do not understand most things at this point. Your last clear memory is the lights going out and water at your shoulders. You think for a moment that you have died, and that this is what death looks like. Open ocean, stars, distant voices. It does not seem worse than what you expected. You will learn later, from people who study these things, what happened. The break that began at 2:18 a.m. did not stay where it started. It propagated forward through the keel as the bow plunged. At some point in the next minute, the hull of Boiler Room 6 opened to the Atlantic for the first time since you came aboard. The water inside the room, already to the ceiling, equalized with the ocean through what was now a hole that was getting larger by the second, and you, weighing 132 pounds, went out with the current. Of the 6 men in Boiler Room 6, you were the only one near the breach. The other 5 were not. This is the entire reason you are alive. Then you hear oars. The sound is small and rhythmic, getting closer. You do not turn your head, because your neck no longer takes orders. You hear a voice you almost recognize, a man calling, "Pull there! Pull there! That's a man! Pull there!" You hear another voice say, "He's gone, sir. Leave him." You hear the first voice say, "He's not gone. I know him. Pull there." The first voice is Thomas. Lifeboat 14, under 5th Officer Harold Lowe, came back at 2:25 a.m. after the screams in the water became too loud for the men in it to ignore. Thomas has been rowing in the stern for 40 minutes, and he has been looking at every dark shape on the surface, and most of them have been wreckage, and most of them have been bodies, but one of them is pale in a way. Wreckage is not. And Thomas calls out, and Lowe, who was reluctant for the last 20 minutes, agrees to turn the boat. Lowe is the only officer in the entire fleet of lifeboats who agrees to turn the boat. A hand catches the collar of your shirt. The hand is attached to an arm. The arm is attached to Thomas, who is leaning over the side of the boat with another sailor holding his belt to keep him from going in. He says, "I told you, lad. You go on. You do not have the strength to answer." You feel yourself being lifted out of the water, slowly, awkwardly, 2 men working at it. And then you are face down on the wooden bottom of the boat with someone's coat over your back. You cannot move. You cannot speak. You are alive. You do not wake up until 4:10 a.m. when the lights of the Carpathia are on you, and you are wrapped in a blanket, and Thomas is next to you with his hand still on your shoulder. Of the 159 firemen who signed on to the Titanic, 48 survived. Of the men in boiler room 6, 2, you, and Thomas. The other 5 stayed where they were when the door came down. The door did not open again. Their names are not on the public memorial in Liverpool. Their families were paid 1 week's wages and asked not to write to the company again. You arrive in New York on April 18th, 1912. Nobody is there to meet you. You are 19 years old, in a borrowed coat, and you walk to a seamen's hostel on West 14th Street. You will never go back to sea. You will use the £6 you were paid for the voyage to buy your mother a dress, which is not what you had planned to buy her, but it is what you have. You will live until 1974. You will tell this story to your grandson once, in 1968, when he is 9 years old, the same age you were when you first walked into the Harland and Wolff shipyard, and you will not tell anyone else, ever. Your name was Patrick Boyle. You were one of 48. You were a rivet in a machine that broke. The machine has been studied for 113 years. You are not. This was Stokehold.